here. Today we continue with the deliberations on Ministry Paper number 64/2010, the Public Sector Master Rationalization Plan. This deals with the recommendations of the Public Sector Transformation Unit for the restructuring of ministries, departments, and agencies. To date, working through the summer recess, we have had a number of presentations made to us and have in large part been looking at the pros and cons of the reshuffling of departments and agencies within the ministries, and where in some cases a few entities could be made redundant, and in others where some services could be shared in order to cut costs. Colleagues, I believe that we have to ask two questions if this committee is to be successful. The first question is, why is the government undertaking this exercise of rationalization of the public sector? The reason, as stated in the document before us, is to realize a vision of a transformed, cohesive public sector that is performance-based, efficient, cost-effective, and service-oriented. So with this in mind, we have to ask ourselves the second and even more important question. Is what has been put before us as a rationalization plan capable of realizing this vision? Given the stated vision, it is evident that the two main reasons for the proposed transformations are, one, to cut costs, and two, to get increased efficiency from the public sector. If the main reason for this exercise is to cut costs, then does the plan come to terms with the stark reality of our national budget, where more than 60% of the expenditure is on the big three: health, education, and national security? All of these areas are national priorities, and all are already underfunded, and I haven't seen anywhere in this plan that this issue is addressed in any transformative way. So what we are looking at are changes in the remaining 30-odd%, and successive governments have been restructuring them for years. In reality, the cost saving from such an exercise may not be what we're looking for. In terms of the second reason for the restructuring, that of increased efficiency in the public sector, we have to be clear in our own minds what we mean by that. It should not be that we're just looking at areas in government where there are agencies and departments with synergies that allow them to work together so that less people can do the same amount of work. We must more importantly look at the role and function of the public service. On the one hand, providing essential services and delivering social services, and on the other hand, providing an enabling environment for the promotion of growth and employment by the private sector in our country. So a serious look must also be taken by our committee and the PSTU at how we do things in government, the whole approval process, how permits are granted, what licenses are really needed, what functions can be abolished, and what functions must be strengthened to create an environment, as is stated in our Vision 2030 plan, to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. If we can effectively restructure and reform the public sector beyond merely the cutting of staff, but to make it a partner with our friends in the private sector, then we may be able to encourage investment, growth, and importantly, the creation of jobs. If the restructuring exercise does not deal with this aspect, then it would not have achieved the goals. Along these lines, we must ensure that those areas that directly promote economic growth, such as tourism, energy, JAMPRO, mining, and others, are given the human and other resources necessary to achieve these ends. Today, we'll hear from Dr. Carlton Davis, who was the previous Cabinet Secretary and was in charge of the last modernization and restructuring program. We'll be able to learn from his experience, because in reality, this is more of a process than an event, and his experience is invaluable. Also, we will hear from the labor unions. I hope that they will not confine themselves to bargaining issues in the public sector, but will also give us their views on how within this restructuring exercise, the issues of labor market reform are going to be dealt with. and those issues are crucial to the success of any restructuring exercise. Where in this document and where in the process does it address the training of our workers and making them more competitive in the global market? In light of all of this, I've also made contact with the private sector umbrella organizations, the PSOJ and Chamber of Commerce, and specifically invited them to make submissions to our committee, because this transformation process, if it is not to be a cosmetic exercise, must address the issues and challenges that they have with respect to the public sector and how it can better operate to enable their success and provide a climate for growth of the Jamaican economy. Colleagues, I make this statement because I believe if we can address these issues, then the work that we do will be important and will not be engaged in a static process. We're hoping that our deliberations, today we will have these submissions. It will only be left for the private sector organizations. And I'm hoping that the deliberations of this committee, that we can bring them to a conclusion, hopefully by the end of October, so that we can send a report back to Parliament. Colleagues,